it's not just like presenting work. We are really producing it. We are doing research. We are bringing experts together.
We want to scout for talents, for young people, for young ideas who can help us in this search.
Housing is a typology which hasn't changed for a very long time. Especially in the 20th century, it made significant iterations, and now it feels that housing is primed for a new idea about how we live together, collectively, alone, and what the implications are for society, for economical factors, and ultimately for building. This is why Housing the Human, to me, is interesting, and this is why it has a certain urgency too.
My prototype is an augmented reality application that tries to explain how we will live in the future, in a future in which the virtual and the physical will be interlaced in just one experience.
Housing the Human is a very interesting and challenging concept, because when we talk about housing in general, you immediately think about, private lives of people, individuals, but at the same time, this collective body that we are and that we call our society. So when I read and was invited to Housing the Human, the first question that it happened in my mind was about, okay, what can we define as human today?
From my personal experience, I felt that nowadays contemporary humans, they cannot only fit one relationship. They have much more going in their head, not only on physical but emotional level. So we have for sure more than 2 or 3 relationships. But the space we have, it kind of accommodates only one type. Somehow all my work has to do with movements. And the crucial point was a mutually defined relationship between spaces and objects, like tables, chairs, objects that we know since we are born from our childhood. We know how to use them very well, how to sit on them, how to position our body, how to cross them. But these objects that we get used to them, they also dictate how we need to think about our relationships and about our emotional life. So the way how I was going to approach it was basically to deconstruct all this environment and to make different elements, and try to shape the new environment based on new relationship models somehow.
I hope that the visitors take away that we are able to shape our future ourselves, that we just don't have to wait till everything is coming over us. From creating these kind of cultural events, we understand and start to understand the implications of design and technology, for instance, on our future life.
For me, my background is architectural history and theory, and I moved into architectural science. I typically work with taking waste from agriculture, food, invasive species, and figuring out ways to upcycle them into building materials using non-toxic bioadhesives. This project was great for me because typically I work on the scale of industry, but here it brought it to the scale of the intimate home, and the idea that there's a social and cultural aspect to making upcycling culturally aspirational as opposed to punitive. So we'll see behind me different objects, including wall panels, kitchen objects, stools like the one I'm sitting on, that are all made out of mycelium, which is the vegetative state of fungi. And they're fed with biomass that come from agriculture as well as from our kitchen in order to generate stuff that we need in our homes.
So our prototype explores the domestication of robots. And we really think of the project as an exploration of the analogy domestication. And domestication is a term to describe the transition of emergent technologies into the home, much like the taming of wild animals or the adoption of kind of wild plants into foods that we eat in our kitchen. We find that there's a possibility in the way of thinking about emergent technologies in a similar manner, that we can take things that are unfamiliar to us, and as we bring them into our intimate spaces and adapt them into our routines and rules, that they then start to domesticate and make this transformation into a household object.
But then again, I think in some way the robot is also... Human species, we think we sort of agreed on what these things look like and how we call them. And so in the work, I'm really interested in not only questioning and sort of making visible what this data looks like, but also questioning the role of language within this. So I think in daily life, language is an endless negotiation. We sort of agree that this is red that we're looking at, even though we're not quite sure what each one of us is really looking at, but we find this common agreement in calling it red. And I think that's something that's lost within technology, where things are really sort of try to be, through parameters, try to be strict and embedded and encoded within something that really only results in a product where whatever is in this film isn't visible, so we don't know what this negotiation was and between whom, if it was between an engineer or if there was anyone else involved. And so I think it's you know, trying to talk about language and this process of negotiation, but also about what might happen with this, you know, sort of biases and assumptions that are encoded within the resulting technology. And because this process is invisible, you don't really know where it comes from.
Yeah, I think for us it was important not to predefine or shape too early the formats of the form of conveying these proposals. So this process was completely open to a very late stage of the development, actually. It was rather about finding out in a very radical sense what these contributors would think about and how they would reflect on their topic. And then in a very late stage, actually a few weeks ago, they were asked what exactly they needed technically, what format it would take, and so it was all about the spaces and how they would use them. I think that is really crucial for the process, that we did not try to push them somewhere, or this has to be a film, or this has to be a performance, or this has to contain more text or so. So this will be a very various mix of different formats.